Hey guys, guess who's back? I'm finally feeling up to do some reviews again. Today I'm going to talk about a game that, like others that I've talked about on this channel, is a childhood favorite of mine, based on a favorite franchise of mine, on this channel of mine. 007 Agent Under Fire. Here's a bit of background on this game and its place in the series. Released on November 13th, 2001 for the Sony PlayStation 2, March 12th, 2002 for the Nintendo GameCube, and March 26th, 2002 for the Microsoft Xbox, Agent Under Fire was developed by EA Redwood Shores, who were later known as the now-defunct Visceral Games, and published by EA Games. It was made and released at an interesting time in the James Bond franchise's history. At that point in time, Pierce Brosnan was James Bond, having completed his third movie, The World Is Not Enough, in 1999. Oddly enough, TWiNE already had video game tie-ins back when it came out, but this game began life as a PC and PlayStation 2 adaptation of that movie, which can be seen in aspects of this game. My understanding of the background is that negotiations were taking place behind the scenes in order to ensure that Brosnan would be returning to the role, but by the time the game was made, push came to shove and he was not included in any way, shape, or form for the game, with Bond instead being played by the actor Andrew Bicknell when it comes to his physical likeness, and Adam Blackwood when it comes to the voiceover. Now, from what I've read, John Cleese was set to reprise the role of R from The World Is Not Enough as well, but this was altered before the release of the game, and M is not voiced in any way at all by Judi Dench, who played M in the movies at the time either. So we have this game that doesn't include any of the actual Bond actors, and the game was originally supposed to be an adaptation of The World Is Not Enough, yet it would have been released 2 years after that movie came out. As always, spoiler alert, there will be spoilers for Agent Under Fire, so let's get into this. M briefs Bond on the situation, so here it is. A CIA agent named Zoe Nightshade was captured while investigating Identicon, a botanical research firm based in Hong Kong, which is believed to be a front for some kind of weapon smuggling operation. Bond goes to their facility, and the game introduces its mechanics rather well with this opening level, which is called Trouble in Paradise. Bond begins the game with his P2K pistol, which is based on the P99 that he used in the movies at the time, as well as some gadgets provided to him by Q Branch inside of a cell phone, and he's able to either use the Q decryptor to enter the level guns blazing through the front door, or use the Q claw to sneak in from above. Sneaking in counts as a Bond move, which are able to be done in order to increase your score, which just gives you different awards based on your score. Anyway, Bond retrieves a briefcase which is filled with some mysterious vials and rescues Nightshade, and that's the opening level. Nigel Block, the leader of Identicon, sends men after them, and in the second mission, a rail shooter called Precious Cargo, Bond and Nightshade are chased through the streets of Hong Kong. After stealing a case filled with vials, they rendezvous with R, who gives Bond one of his classic cool cars with gadgets, the BMW Z8. But then Zoe is killed and the vials are stolen by a then unknown assailant.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
The third level, Dangerous Pursuit, features the third different type of gameplay featured in this game, though we'll get back to that later. Bond gives chase, stopping an armored car and retrieving the case of vials, and we learn that the vials have 9 blood samples, 8 of which belong to various world leaders, including a British diplomat by the name Reginald Griffin. Bad diplomacy sees Bond infiltrating the British embassy in Romania to investigate the situation. Bond gets to the same floor that Griffin's office is in, and in typical Bond fashion, he wanders into the room of an undressing woman. But by falsely claiming that he's just a new security guard who happened to get lost, he gets out scot-free with a security card. And using the card, he's able to enter Griffin's office, only to find that somehow Griffin is mysteriously laying dead in his chair. Then, a man who looks exactly the same as Griffin appears and attacks Bond. After Bond defeats the doppelganger, he checks Griffin's computer, finding a message from Nigel Block that mentions Malprave Industries, which is based in Switzerland, and Bond escapes. Cold Reception sees Bond, disguised as a journalist, arriving at Malprave Industries as he meets Adrian Malprave, who we saw at the embassy earlier. This one's a stealth mission with an interesting time limit of 10 minutes each for the 2 sections that are featured in the level, though truth be told, you'd probably have to be deliberately trying to run out of time to actually do so it's really not a big deal. Unlike the last mission, stealth is optional during parts of this mission, but it does make it easier to play through. After getting evidence, he escapes from the facility. The message from Griffin's computer earlier mentioned damaged goods, which was thought to be an alias for Dr. Natalia Demescu, a former Malprave employee who was under British protection at the British Embassy in Romania, so Bond goes back there. It's not that often that the story of a game has the character in-universe backtracking. In Night of the Jackal, Bond has to fight through a terror attack on the embassy in order to get to Dr. Demescu. I'm kind of amazed at the fact that they were actually able to get a mission involving terrorism into a game that came out mere months after 9/11. I mean, it's not that weird, but that's a little, I don't know, that just strikes me as interesting. Anyway, I like the way that this mission opens up. It's a nice use of the first-person perspective. From Bond's point of view, we witness a bus crashing head-on into the front gate of the embassy. It's a nice cinematic moment in a game that otherwise is actually pretty lacking in this regard. The attack is led by a notable terrorist known as the Jackal, who was responsible for Zoe's death earlier. After meeting up with Demescu, Bond fights and kills the Jackal, retrieving a data chip. The following mission is called Streets of Bucharest. While it's not particularly story-heavy, it has Bond driving the classic Aston Martin DB5 from the Sean Connery, George Lazenby era, and also it appeared in GoldenEye, so it's part of the Brosnan era as well. It's interesting because this driving section has Bond start off in the DB5, but then Bond gets into a tank and the game turns it into a rail shooting level, a la the tank scene from GoldenEye. It's cool, but I remember it being a hard level to beat, and I figured that this is as good a place as any to mention one of my criticisms that I have of the game. This game includes a lives system for each level, where you get 2 lives. If you fail a level 3 times, you have to restart completely from the beginning of the level. The other aggravating thing is that there really aren't checkpoints, but whenever you start a new section of a level, that functions like a checkpoint. In other words, this means that the checkpoints can be very far apart and kind of difficult to actually reach, and if you die too many times, you'll have to restart the entire level all over again. Other than this mission, it wasn't really too big of a problem, but I think it's worth addressing it nonetheless. Anyway, the level ends with Bond reaching R and delivering the data chip from the Jackal. R's analysis of the chip leads Bond to an oil rig in the South China Sea. Beginning with this mission, Fire and Water, R deploys Bond with a new gadget called the Q-Jet, a jetpack powered by bursts of air. There are stations throughout the levels from this point onwards that you can refill it at, and it basically serves as a really high double jump. Bond chases Block throughout the oil rig, eventually ending up in an underwater rail shooting level called Forbidden Depths, where Bond chases Block into Poseidon, which is an underwater cloning lab, vaguely reminiscent of Atlantis from The Spy Who Loved Me. And he also kills Block. After blowing up the lab at the end of the Poseidon mission, Bond meets Zoe Nightshade alive and well on a submarine heading towards a Royal Navy boat. And she reveals that the Zoe we saved earlier in the game was actually a clone intended to infiltrate the CIA, and that the Jackal intended to kill Bond in that attack.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Of course, in traditional 007 fashion, Bond attempts re-entry with her. What happens at the beginning of the next mission is actually pretty interesting, and I really do give them credit for the cleverness of this aspect of the level design. There's a verification code that you can find in the Poseidon level, though it's not marked or mentioned in any way at all. If you collect it, Bond and Nightshade start off the following level which is called Mediterranean Crisis, from the outside of the aircraft carrier. Otherwise, they're captured by the guards, and the mission begins with them in the brig. Either way, that mission has Bond and Zoe discover that 8 of the world's leaders have been cloned, with the intent being that they will replace the original leaders. To this end, Malprave has taken the real leaders hostage at a secret base in Switzerland. Bond is able to blow up the aircraft that was carrying the clones, and then Zoe and Bond make an escape via aircraft. And now we're in the final stretch. The game's final mission, Evil Summit, has Bond go to the base in Switzerland to fight through Malprave's forces and rescue the original world leaders. And then Malprave appears and sets the base to self-destruct, leaving Bond to fight Nigel Block, who was none too happy to have his doppelganger die early. After a brief fight, we hop into a little tube, shoot a rocket at the window, and just barely make it out alive with Zoe in the aircraft from earlier as the explosion kills Malprave, Nigel Block, and presumably hundreds of other unfortunate employees, and the credits roll. I'm really not sure what else to say about this game except that it's fine, but nothing more. It's a straightforward first-person shooting game with a simple but fun story, but it's nothing to write home about. Bond has a variety of guns that he finds in the field, such as the Frenesi shotgun, Wolfram P2K handgun, and other weapons that are based on real-life weapons. Many of them have an alternate firing mode, such as the P2K offering a silencer, or scoped weapons allowing Bond to zoom in to aim better. Q-Branch has been hard at work during this game, it seems, so Bond has a cell phone gadget with the Q-Claw, Q-Decryptor, Q-Remote, and Q-Laser, which can open doors, melt locks, etc. There's vehicle sections that involve driving, and there's rail shooting sections. I do like that the game makes a conscious effort to change up and differentiate its gameplay, and as a particularly fond fan of Crash Bandicoot Warped, I believe that that type of gameplay is awesome when it's done well. But sometimes this game gets a little too trigger-happy with it. Case in point, the first 4 levels have a shooting level with optional stealth, a rail shooter level, a driving level, and then a shooting level that requires stealth. It's a bit much, just a little bit. Another quirk of this game is that the guns have really crazy recoil when you're shooting at a distance, so you may need to get really up close. Bond has a health ring that refills with armor pickups. What else really is there to say? This is an okay game, and it even began a pseudo-story arc that branched through Agent Under Fire, Nightfire, and Everything or Nothing. And I do enjoy a lot of aspects of this that do seem to be deliberate nods for die-hard Bond fans like me. For example, reportedly in development, they wanted to get Sir Roger Moore to play James Bond, and the way that the in-game Bond acts is actually very reminiscent of how Moore would behave, with the same kind of clever wit and sarcastic behavior that we would see from Moore in the movies. The supervillain's lair calls old-school Spectre villains like Blofeld to mind. The Switzerland setting evokes parts of On Her Majesty's Secret Service, and notably, since this game began as a PS2 and PC adaptation of The World Is Not Enough, the duo of Nigel Block and Adrian Malprave are rather similar to Renard and Elektra. It's nice, but I don't think this game's a whole lot to write home about or go out of your way to play. But if you enjoy a good Bond one-liner with your first-person shooter, then maybe this is the game for you. But I wouldn't go out of your way for it. If I had to rate this, I've never really used number ratings on this channel, but if I had to rate this, I'd probably say it's like a 7 out of 10. Nothing great, but it's not bad. It's not technically bad in any way. The game runs well most of the time. It's fun. Gameplay is good and intuitive. It's usually not too hard. There's not a whole lot of glaring errors, but at the same time, it's just competent. That's it. There are better Bond first-person shooters. GoldenEye, The World Is Not Enough, Nightfire. A lot of other options out there, so I wouldn't put this as number 1 on the list. Oh, there's also multiplayer, but just play GoldenEye. Anyway, that's my review of Agent Under Fire. Trying to get back in the swing of things. So, hope you enjoyed this. So, until the next one, this is Arthur Wonderfluff, signing out.